What we're going to look at today is how to get an equation that is in general form into standard form. And the way we're going to do that is there's quite a few steps. So I want you to write these steps down, and then I'll show you what they look like. So the first step is get all your x's together. So I see an x squared. I see a 24x here. In a second, we're going to complete the square, so we're going to need a little space to do that. So put a space, and then put your y squareds together. Again, put a space, and whatever the constant is, subtract to the other side. Whoops. So that's a 153. Now, and again, kind of keep in mind what we're doing here. So what we're doing is we're trying to get this equation into something that looks like x minus h quantity squared. So to do that, we're going to use a process that's called completing the square. And so to do that, there's some steps. So what we do is we have our x squared and we have our 24, and we're going to write this into some quantity squared. So we're going to take half of this middle term, so half of 24 is 12, and then we square that. So we'll get 144. Now what that will do for us is that if I look at this factor now, what are the factors of 144 that add up to 24? Well, they're 12. And I've now rewritten this as a quantity, x plus 12 quantity squared. Now again, let's go back and look at the algebra. I can't just add 144 to this side without doing the exact same thing on the other side. So let's complete the square on y, and I'll slow down a little bit so you can write down these steps. So with the y squared, I take half this middle term, which is half of negative 10 is negative 5. I squared, I get a 25. And whatever I do to this side, I have to also do to the other side. Now watch what happens. By adding this 25, I've now made this a perfect square. What are the factors of 25 that add up to 10? A negative 5 and a negative 5. And then how do we rewrite that? As a y minus 5 quantity squared equal to, so now this looks more like a circle with a center at negative 12, positive 5. And what is our radius? Well, let's add these all together, and I get, what do I get here? I get negative 9. Take away 9 here, I'll get a 16. So we should recognize this. Oh, what just happened to my computer there? We should recognize this as a circle with radius negative 12, positive 5. I'm sorry, center of negative 12, positive 5, and a radius of 16. So I'll rewrite the steps for you, but and then we'll do a couple and go from there. So let's take a look at problem number 2. So again, what you want to do is you want to put all the x's together and all the y's together. So this first step would look like x squared minus 18x and a y squared minus an 8y. Whatever your constant is, your number, move to the, I'm going to say right-hand side. And so if it's a positive 48, when I move it to the right-hand side, it should be a negative 48. Okay. And then your next step is to complete what we call complete the square. So completing the square has a couple steps. The first step is to take half the middle term and whatever that is, square it, and then add that to both sides. So again, copy down those notes. It's a process. There's a couple different steps. We've got to put the x and y's together. We did that. We moved them to the right-hand side. Now we're going to complete the square. So let's do that. So half of 18 is 9. Square it, we get a 81. Whenever I add this to this side, scribble down that on the other side quickly because that's the most forgotten step. Half of negative 8 is negative 4. Square that, I get a 16. But again, as soon as you put a plus 16 here, put a plus 16 on the other side so we equate that out. Now, look what's special about this trinomial. The idea of doing this, completing the square, is I now have written this as what we call a perfect square. What are the factors of 81 that add up to negative 18? Negative 9 and negative 9, so we can write that as x minus 9 quantity squared. What are the factors of 16 that add up to negative 8? Minus 4 and minus 4, so we can write that as a quantity squared. And then on the other side is our radius squared. So let's see, if I do some math here, what do I get? I get 97 if I add these two together, minus 48. I would get a 49 as my radius squared. So when you're identifying things or graphing, you need to identify the center, which is xy. You need to identify the radius, which is this number square rooted. So what I'd like you to do now is to practice some of these problems with circles only, and then you can see in your examples 3 and 4, those look different, and we'll do that in our next lesson.